Hello, and welcome to another edition of East of Ethnia. And for this week, I am going again to make some predictions. I mean, last time, I guess I made a prediction. I said it was a prediction. Um, to be honest, it wasn't much of a prediction because I predicted something that other people had already been predicting. But I guess I'm going to do it again. Let me give you a little bit of background. I am recording this because I got an email last night from a friend from school asking me the question, does the fact that Orban was defeated in Hungary mean that Vučić can be defeated in Serbia? And he was wondering what my opinion was. But of course, when you get a message like this, there's always a little bit of a subtext to it. And the subtext is, won't you send some optimism our way? Which is something that I suppose I am always happy to do. But you don't want to be irresponsible about giving optimism. I think what people want is a kind of realistic sense of what could happen. So that's what I'm going to try to provide. I'm doing it in the form of predictions, and maybe I should say a word about predictions. And probably the first thing I should say is that anytime anybody makes a prediction, there is always a chance that the prediction can be wrong. There's no good in making predictions that are always right. If you're making predictions that are always right, then you're not predicting. You're observing something that is already clear. So these predictions that I'm making now could be wrong. And of course, when I say I'm making predictions, I'm not actually trying to predict the future. I'm not a magical person. I can't predict the future. What I want to do in the form of a predictions is to indicate some things that are worth looking at, what might happen, and what are some useful ways of analyzing things. So let's get to it. What is going to happen over the next several months in Serbia that could or could not get Vučić and his party, his regime, out of power? So, prediction number one. Vučić is going to, in the next month or two, try to establish more or less complete control over media. This, of course, is not really a prediction. It's something that he's already doing, and he's arranged for the takeover of this company, United Media Group, which is behind most of the prominent independent media in Serbia, newspapers and electronic media. They have not yet changed their editorial policy to be consistent with the demands of the regime, but this is something that's likely to happen. Of course, even when control of media is very strong, it's never complete. And the fact that people have capacity to use internet and social media and so on means that there are always going to be ways of disrupting this control, no matter how strong it is. Prediction number two. Vučić is going to move against the universities, and this is another prediction that is not really a prediction. It's something that's already happening. The regime has been, over the last year or so, showing in various ways its power over universities by taking the University of Niš, taking three departments away from the Faculty of Philosophy, putting them in this newly created faculty created by order of the Ministry of Education, what they call Faculty of Serbian Studies, with the idea of getting an additional faculty in the university that will be loyal to him, at the same time punishing the Faculty of Philosophy that has not been loyal to him. And similar things are happening at other universities, at the University of Novi Sad. Once they managed to fire the communications professor, Jelena Kleut, they are going through and firing more and more staff, people who have been supportive of the students and the demonstrations. The rhetoric has escalated on this. One of the proposals that was floated a week or so ago, I'll put a link in the text that accompanies this video, is a proposal for the university, together with the Serbian Orthodox Church, to found a new university that would compete with University of Belgrade, so diminishing its student base and its income base. This is a project that, if it's tried, could very possibly be attractive to students who, by making a display of loyalty, help to secure their prospects of future employment. So if they do this, then this will weaken one of the strongest bases of opposition to the regime. Prediction number three is actually a prediction, and that is that once discipline has been imposed on media and universities, then elections will be called. This could happen relatively soon. This could happen as early as June. So again, this is not so much a prediction as a projection from previous patterns. That is, that the regime calls elections when they think that they have a good chance of winning them. Um, how will these elections take place? Well, let's go to prediction number four. The elections will be dirty. They will be the dirtiest elections that you have ever seen because the regime is insecure. In previous elections, they have also used different types of fraud, falsification of voter lists, vote buying, intimidation, and so on. And this was in conditions in which they were pretty certain of winning. Now they are not certain of winning. So once the elections are called, look for a lot of intimidation. Look for presence of thugs on the streets, displays of power, like the regime made in taking over a park in the central of Belgrade and turning it into an armed tent encampment for the criminals who support them. Look for the founding of phantom parties. So when the students began protesting, the first thing the regime did is create this phantom movement, the students who want to study. When the students come forward with their student list for the election, look for the regime to come forward and register parties like the students who want to study, the students who want to study something else, the students who want to study for a couple of hours and then go for coffee, and so on, all with the purpose of diluting the votes and confusing people who are intending to vote for the students. And I don't know whether the Bulgarian State Railway takes a commission when people use the Bulgarian train trick in Serbia, but if so, they will make a tremendous profit. They'll be using that technique where people are handed an already filled out ballot outside the polling station, brought back and paid for returning the blank ballot that they have received at the polling station. Look also for a significant part of the population of Bosnia and Herzegovina having Serbian citizenship and refugees from Kosovo to appear as registered to vote in places where they do not live in order to alter the results. Look for them to be bussed around to vote in sometimes several places. So, so these are the predictions about the run up to the election. What will happen to the election? Now I'm going to make a serious prediction. I think the students can win. That is, that they can defeat the regime in power. Um, Having said that, let's put a couple of caveats here. They can win by making some compromises. They will win by avoiding making the political choices that will define them and creating the kind of broad coalition that won the election in Hungary. They'll also have to win through another means, and that is finding ways to bypass what is going to be the monopoly of control over media. They are already pretty good and pretty effective at using social media to bypass this monopoly. But the other thing that was done in Hungary that the students will have to do in this election is they will have to reach out beyond the large cities, not rely on big margins in the big cities to win the election, and travel to the villages, small towns, rural areas, bring their message there, and they'll have to do it in a way that is non-confrontational, that will be acceptable to people who have previously been supporters of the regime. So they will make these compromises, and the compromises are what lead me to prediction number six. And that is the compromises that the students make during the election period will constrain them in their activity when they finally take power. You see, I'm predicting that they'll take power. Of course, none of this is certain, but there are some basic conflicts within the student movement and among supporters of the student movement that have to do with conflicts between nationalists and the left, conflicts about the pace of change and what needs to change. The thing that there is consensus about in the entire movement is the need to dismantle structures of authoritarian control, the need to bring in free and fair election systems, the need for democracy, free media, independent judiciary, and so on. They will have to remain united united in spite of programmatic differences in order to be able to accomplish anything, this will be difficult. And it'll be difficult because they'll take their election result as a recommendation that they claim more power, and because being in power has the tendency not only to corrupt people, but to make people think that they are necessary. That is to lose some of the direct communication with the public and some of the idealism that brought them into power. Having said that, I mean, what this means is that removing Vučić from power will not necessarily accomplish all of the things that need to be accomplished. It is at best a first step. Um, which leads me to prediction number seven. Prediction number seven is that it's worth doing this anyway, despite the likelihood that the result will be compromised. And that's because the questions that people who are opposed to the regime disagree about internally are questions that are fundamental for the future of the state and the society. I mean, they not only have to do with the question of a European as opposed to an alternative international orientation, and they not only have to do with relations to things like neoliberal reforms and capitalist markets, they have to do with questions like the role of nationalism and national ideology in politics, in education, and in social life, the role of citizens in social life, and the role of the state. And it is not going to be possible to resolve any of the disagreements regarding these questions unless there is an atmosphere of free and open discussion and debate. So this is the minimum condition necessary to begin the sort of dialogue that has been deferred in order to create a broad coalition. So these seven predictions are more or less the answer that I offered to my school friend in terms of what can happen in the near future. I mean, as you can see, these predictions, I mean, they're not really predictions. Some of them are expressions of optimism. Some of them are assessments of the constraints of the situation. What they mean is that there is a little bit of hope. It has to be managed well. It's possible that all of this can fail. The only thing that I'll say about the predictions, the one, of course, that is most likely to be wrong out of all of these several predictions is number five, that the students will win, that Vučić will be removed from power in elections. I mean, they have to manage things well. The regime probably has to mess up pretty badly in order to make this happen, although they are weakened and they've lost a big international supporter and a supporter in the forum of the EU with the defeat of Orban in Hungary. Um, but uh, um, but I'll add a proviso to this, and that is that the students' victory has to be pretty big in order to overcome the capacity of the regime for intimidation and fraud. Now, I don't know whether I've succeeded in sending the optimism that I was implicitly asked to send by making these predictions. But this is what I think is likely to happen over the next couple of months. And of course, everybody is welcome to come back once things have begun happening and remind me of all of the ways in which I was either right or wrong, or partly right or misguided in my predictions. Thanks for your time and attention, and we will talk to you again soon.